I hear a lot of women expressing that there are too many emotionally unavailable men out here, that they always seem to attract the man not even open a little bit, open to connecting on a deeper level than his bedsheets. And you hear that there are plenty of men out here, yet the ones you end up choosing, this is a running thing. And the worst part, you only really find this out about a guy when you've already emotionally invested in him to some degree. But part of knowing how to choose is knowing what not to choose. So we're going to go through 5 clear signs a man is emotionally unavailable so you don't get hurt giving yourself to the wrong guy. The first clear sign is he avoids real conversations. You enjoy being in each other's company and you have a really playful dynamic sexually. The conversation flows smoothly when it's about friends, when it's about plans for dinner or your choice of clothing. However, when you start sharing more emotional things about your family or discuss your plans for your future and you ask about his, he mentally just checks out. A guy in an emotionally unavailable space doesn't want to engage in the real life conversations. He may have some capacity to listen, but he's emotionally shutting down that part of himself so that you don't get too close. Now, if that's the case, you will feel likely alone on an emotional level, even though you feel you are trying to connect with him on a deeper level. He especially avoids conversations and doesn't invest in talking with you when you bring up mature topics about the relationship, especially the one that you two could be building together. Healthy relationships are ones where your partner wants you to feel connected, wants you to feel heard, wants you to feel supported. Now, just because he's listening doesn't mean that he's taking on the responsibility of sharing that emotional space with you. You'll often find that maybe he'll share a little bit about himself, but he doesn't go too much into detail. This happens because this is a way that he can manage his emotions, but also manage your emotional expectation of getting too close. This is most apparent if he is the type of guy who is used to dealing with many women, many different kinds of women. He knows that sharing intimate things, real life things, real material things is how people start to connect on a deeper level. And he knows that if he does this frivolously with a woman, it is very likely that she will get to a point where she is so emotionally invested in him that she will start to ask more from him than he's actually willing to give. And so men who are very experienced with women are very intelligent in this area. You will notice that maybe you tried out having these conversations, but when you leave his house, you still don't feel closer with him than you did, say, 3 or 4 weeks before that. Next sign, his relationship history speaks volumes. While true, we can't judge people solely based on their history when it comes to relationships, it is important to take note of a person's relationship history and the dynamics that have played in each one. The ways in which we operate in relationships, the way we engage, respond, love, reciprocate, listen, these things are all based on a pattern of responses that are often automatic and unconscious in us. Therefore, if someone has operated in a certain way in the past, unless they've done some real introspective work and made conscious shifts, it's very likely that they will repeat their old patterns in current relationships moving forward. Now, unless you see them aware of these habits and they are actively trying to build better ones to create a healthy version of these things, it's not unreasonable to expect the same result. When it comes to past relationships of men who are emotionally unavailable, you'll likely see that they have either never been in a committed relationship or have only ever had quote-unquote casual flings or situationships. They may have primarily had like friends with benefits, or they had relationships that were toxic or even chronically unfulfilling. One thing to look out for though is you may notice a pattern where they leave the relationship just as it's starting to get serious. And this is usually in like the 3 to 6 month mark, or if they end things because they are afraid of getting cuffed. These are all things of someone who has a fear associated with emotional intimacy. A good question to ask him is, what was his longest relationship? If his longest relationship was less than a year, that may be an amber flag. He may be a fully fledged adult in his 20s or even his 30s, but if that's the case, then it's very likely that the reason they've not lasted longer than a year is because he doesn't have the practice in himself to sustain a long-term relationship. And one of the biggest elements of sustaining a long-term relationship is the emotional commitment and the emotional investment. Healthy love and healthy relationship with someone that you have ultimate trust in can actually be as freeing and invigorating and deeply fulfilling when you are wanting that deep connection. But him wanting that deep connection has to be there. Otherwise, if he doesn't want that, having the responsibility of a relationship feels more like a burden to him than an asset. for him. The next sign that he is emotionally unavailable is that he is hot and cold over texting. When we want to build a relationship or looking to build a relationship in general, there is a level of interaction and responsiveness we have with said person. When a guy is emotionally unavailable, his communication will reflect that, especially over texting. And the reason this can be confusing is because it happens quite often when a woman is dating a guy. When she spends time with him, it actually is very nice and goes really well. Things seem to be flowing and, they're both having a great time, but it's when they're away from each other, that's when she really does feel distant from him. He doesn't really feel like a presence in her life. Sometimes he will respond during that day, sometimes he won't respond till the next day or even the next 2 days after that. If you message asking how he's doing, he doesn't really give a full-on answer, or he doesn't try and engage in the conversation further. When she tries to have the conversation with him of a sexual nature, that's when she gets a level of attention and validation that she needs from texting. And part of the reason he does this, and it's not always a conscious thing on the guy, but the intention is the same, and this is why it can be very detrimental, is because subconsciously what this does is it almost trains and conditions the woman in the scenario to understand that the only way to get his attention is to provide sexual energy in the communication. And this is a very big sign. If that is the only way you can get his immediate or his responsiveness to be more frequent and consistent, he's emotionally unavailable. There would be times that he would reach out and engage with you if he was actually looking for something serious. Now, we all know that sometimes we get busy and it's okay to not be responsive as quickly. That's fine. But when it comes to someone who is emotionally not present, there will be a normalizing of this lack of communication on his part or this intermittent emotional presence. If you feel like you're grasping for a response or like you're reaching to know that you matter to him, just pause, take a breath and reflect. Avoid engaging in this cycle where someone who isn't able to reciprocate healthy communication and care is a person that you are constantly trying to reach out to, because you will ultimately be left feeling emotionally hungry and starved. It also plays more into the leverage and power dynamic that you are chasing for his attention, but he is not willing to give any to you. Next sign, his energy is non-committal. You know that calm, safe feeling you get when you spend time with someone who just cares about you and even just loves you? Like, think about your best friend from childhood, or your brother or sister, or even a close colleague, maybe a friend, maybe a mentor who just shows up for you in the good times and the bad. Our bodies know the energy that surrounds us. It's interesting because somatic therapy speaks about this concept that we have a felt sense of energy that gives us the good feels or gives us the yucky feels. The truth is, especially if you're a woman who is very in tune with her feminine, you will be likely very sensitive to other people's energies. That's why when you meet a group of people, you can tell somebody who maybe likes you straight away, maybe who doesn't like you, or, who is looking to give you as much energy or who isn't. Women are generally very, very sensitive to this, especially a woman who sits in her feminine. And so when it comes to being with someone who is emotionally unavailable, your body gets this anxious, irritable energy because you can sense his energy of non-commitment. And yes, he may be very adorable. He may have a nice smile, have a lovely laugh, but ultimately you end up feeling a bitter taste in your heart because of this energy. Regardless of all those great things that he does have about, his energy of non-commitment comes across when he just fits you into his free time, or maybe he cancels plans last minute, or always tries to make plans with you last minute. You notice that seems to be the dynamic between you both, lastminute.com. He won't be trying to make sure that you are on his priority list. And when you start noticing your position in his life, you start feeling bad for yourself because you start to think, well, I really like him, so I want to take the energy and time that he does give to me, but at the same time, I value myself more. So there's an element of yourself wanting to reject the time that he does have because he's not prioritizing you and he's not prioritizing the relationship you're meant to be building. Because when you continue to engage in this dynamic, it often starts to have an effect on your own self-esteem. It's really unhealthy to stay engaged in this when you know that you want something more. And this next sign, which I believe is the most important telltale sign, is you feel insecure and misunderstood. Half of being understood is about your words landing, but the other half is about the person truly caring about how you're feeling and valuing your emotions. When you are choosing to invest in a guy who is emotionally unavailable, you'll likely feel dismissed and understood. He may be listening to the words that you're saying, but he isn't truly taking the energy to understand you, get to fully grasp what the situation is and how that's having an impact on you. And he may even get frustrated. And this may hurt because of his lack of enthusiasm or his lack of care. He may tell you that you're too needy or you're really complicated. And this can leave you feeling insecure and bad about yourself because you like this guy. You don't want him to think bad of you. You may think that you're feeling bad because of what he said about you needing too much. But really, the insecurity is about the fact that you're engaging with someone who isn't giving you a feeling of safety and security. Now, don't get me wrong. When it comes to the building of the emotional elements of the relationship, this can be something guys need more time with. And so as a woman, you should have more grace with that. But how you know whether a guy is trying is that you will see progress. It's not about how he is with you right now. It's about what is he doing now compared to a month ago. It's about, do you see the progress in how he's giving to the relationship that you're building? Can you see progress in him trying to understand you, him trying to know where you're coming from, him trying to value your emotions and your response to things? Does he inquire? Does he say, hey, okay, I'm struggling to understand, so can you please explain this? There may be a genuine level of effort from him, but maybe he's just a little slower for him to get to that level on the emotional journey where you're at. And that's okay. But if you find yourself the same kind of conversations, especially when it comes to you feeling insecure or feeling misunderstood, and you don't really see him trying, then that's a very, very clear sign that he is emotionally unavailable. So if you're ready to attract the kind of guy who is emotionally available, then enroll in my Claim Your Man program below, where I show you how to do just that. Thanks for tuning in, and as always, keep it slick.